Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And now it's time that we start our year-end list. And let's start off with the one that somehow always becomes the most popular, the top 10 worst hit songs of 2015. Now there were a lot of critics, myself included, who will say that 2015 was a better year for the Hot 100 than previous years. While there were a fair number of bad songs, they don't quite dip into the seething rage that sparks up when you have tracks implicitly endorsing date rape like in 2013, or watching two of my favorite genres spiral into inane offensive nonsense like in 2014. And sure, some of those trends did continue into 2015, but it was largely overshadowed by the good songs being a lot better, and the bad songs not quite having the same staying power or cultural presence, with a few unfortunate exceptions that, yes, we will be discussing here. So to reestablish the rules for those who aren't familiar, the songs need to have debuted on the Billboard year-end Hot 100 this year in 2015. And keep in mind, just being obscenely boring does not cut it for me. So if you were expecting Rachel Platten's Fight Song or Somebody by Natalie LaRose featuring Jeremiah show up on this list, not gonna happen. And one other important thing, just because I might have had a passionate reaction to the song on, say, Billboard Breakdown, my weekly series, that's no guarantee that the song might land on this list. As much as Coco by OT Genasis is ridiculously incompetent, it's too stupidly earnest to be all that hateable for much of this kind of hilarious. It's a novelty track. This list is for songs that make my stomach churn. The tracks I avoid at all costs. The compositions where you wonder who in the nine hells greenlit this for public consumption. Of course, for some tracks, you can see exactly what they were going for, which is a fine enough place to start with our dishonorable mentions. You know, I'm gonna blow your minds here. I didn't hate Iggy Azalea's Fancy as much as so many other people did, but I know a brazen ripoff when I hear it, and yet somehow Jidenna and Roman GianArthur are even less believable in their appropriation of gangsta imagery than Iggy Azalea was. That because their flow and bars are nowhere near as good or punchy, and that because it's kinda hard to cultivate a smooth, classy vibe against gang vocals and that synth line. And that's where we get to lines like his crew slinging cocaine like a dandy. You know, if I remember The Godfather correctly, the definition of your classy gangsta stereotype, the Corleones wanted to keep the drugs out of their territory in that movie. But the biggest issue is that neither of these guys are remotely convincing as either a classic man or as a gangsta. That because so many of their lines are ridiculously corny, and that because neither of them have anything close to assertive presence in their voices. Charlie XCX, these guys are not. And am I the only one who feels the song gets a little bit petulant whenever we get the lines, even when she go away, on the pre-chorus? Yeah, you keep on trying to convince yourselves of that after she leaves that you're really classic men, because you'll be about the only people that you managed to convince, if that. Really, Nick Jonas? You're right to be hellish? Look, on some level this song might have been salvaged from mediocrity. It's got a decent, if overmixed groove, and Nick Jonas is doing his absolute best to be Justin Timberlake, which he later repeats to much greater results later this year. But between the chipmunk fragments, a beat that is nowhere near as punchy or tight as it should be, and lyrics that try to twist Nick Jonas's passive-aggressive envy into an attempt at complimenting this girl, and then making her envy seem just as attractive, look, I'm sorry, this is just ugly and distrustful. Two overblown egos feeding into a relationship that seemed destined to fail. And turns out, it did.
I was by your side, so where are you now that I need you? Where are you now that I need you?
Granted, if your relationship does fail, this is probably not the way to act out your most pissy instincts. A track going on and on about how much you gave your ex and how much you sacrificed, and now, where's she now when you need her? And really, I'm divided on where this song falls apart. Is it Justin Bieber's inert and self-obsessed crooning presence on the microphone, the fragrant abuse of pitch shifting and choppy vocal fragments over a painfully thin mix, or that distant, weedy synth fragment seems to spasm off beat? Just sounds kind of awkward, no matter how much textured trap percussion you dump on top of it. Either way, it fits into the category of some of the worst work of all three men in question. And keep in mind that Skrillex once worked with Quan, Diplo has produced for Riff Raff, and Justin Bieber, well, Justin Bieber's Justin Bieber.
Give it to me, I'm worth it.
If it wasn't for Normani's pre-chorus, this would have landed on my top 10 worst hit songs of the year for certain. One of my most controversial reviews this year was of Fifth Harmony's debut album Reflection, and yet I think I ended up downplaying how much this song pissed me off. With its bargain barrel psycho production, the hollow and ugly vocal production specifically that makes every member sound like they're singing through a tube, or the melodic sax solo that might as well be pulled straight out of / ripped off of Jason Derulo's Talk Dirty. Then there's Kid Ink spitting the same verse twice with some of the laziest rapping of his entire career, or the girls drop into a very nasal hook bragging about how we should give it to them because they're worth it. So, okay, not only do they come across like spoiled divas, but given all the sexual implications, what they want given takes on a very different connotation. Lovely. Oh, and for reference, at the time the song was recorded, the youngest member of Fifth Harmony was 17. Kid Ink is 28. Ew.
I don't have to make you love me, I just wanna take your time. I don't wanna wreck your Friday, I ain't gonna waste my life. I don't have to take your heart, I just wanna take your time.
So here's a true story for you all. I was out at country karaoke, and just as I was finishing singing up an old Travis Tritt song, a girl comes up to me, and she says I should totally sing Sam Hunt's Take Your Time, because he's such her favorite country artist right now. And I had to restrain my urge to issue the following corrections. 1, this is not a country song. 2, there's less singing than half-rap talking on this track that can't settle on either. 3, this song is a disingenuous slice of bro sleaze that doesn't have the stones to outright say that Sam Hunt wants to nail this girl, no matter how much self-aware commentary is going on. He just wants to take her time. But the real revealing line is, I don't have to make you love me. You know, because she's just gonna fall head over heels in love for Sam Hunt anyway, because he's playing hard to get. And maybe her friend's coming over to get her, or she hasn't left yet, because she's looking to find the right line for the polite exit, and you're coming across like a goddamn creep. So, no, I didn't sing Take Your Time that night. I sang Alan Jackson instead. You know, real country music.
$50,000 on your bill, wanna fuck me, gotta scream it like ooh, 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 ooh. Cause I got a check, nigga wanna flip, I ain't got a flip, but I got it, ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, that old some mix, she gon' wanna sit, every nigga in the set, now she screaming like ooh, ooh, ooh. How much you made?
You know, this song is a lot lower than I otherwise expect, considering how much rage it inspired in that episode of Billboard Breakdown. I think part of it is the odd, gritty feeling to the groove actually proved surprisingly decent against that wiry synth line, because the majority of the lyrics are borderline incomprehensible if you don't have them out right in front of you. And if you are looking to enjoy this track in any way, shape, or form, I highly recommend you keep that in mind, because they reveal some ugly things about rich homie Quan. Like how, in the chorus, he likes to give the girls ecstasy to get them in bed with him, or how he compares the girl he's with, who of course he stole from you, to Dennis Rodman, for how he describes getting a blowjob like a toupee, for how he compares himself and his girl to a big dog and cat and how she likes it in the back, which I'm fairly certain is not possible, or how at the end of the day, it's vapid luxury porn that we've heard hundreds of times before that avoids rhyming entirely to instead go ooh, 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 which calls to mind apes and chimpanzees, and wow, that's loaded with racial implications I don't want to touch at all on this show, and yet, rich homie Quan insists that he's not flexing. Why did we give this guy a career after Type Away again?
All my bitches got real hair, chillin' with the top down, screaming like, hey, I'ma take her ass down, she bring her friend around, fuck 'em both like, hey, I'm a bougie ass nigga, like the roof at home, we vibing like, but don't be acting like I need you.
You know, the best thing I can say about the song is that it wasn't the worst track off of Fan of a Fan, but really, is that saying much when you throw two of the least likable men in hip-hop and R&B on top of a pretty bouncy and actually likable synth line for them to behave like auto-tuned douchebags, always screwing your girl and then treating her like disposable trash afterwards? It's the self-obsession that drives me off the wall with this song. Tyga's looking in the mirror having an I'd fuck me moment. Chris Brown references breaking the restraining order that he was specifically given to keep away from women for his anger management issues, and they're all tatted up like Mexicans, and their section of the bar is filled with lesbians, because the implication is that Chris Brown and Tyga are such sex gods that they can easily seduce them into three-ways. Ugh, yeah, no. This song is so painfully juvenile in its approach towards women or anything that I really can't hate it that much, but I can dismiss it. Came from two overgrown man-children with delightful charges of domestic abuse and borderline pedophilia. Screw this. And now onto the list proper. So what can possibly be worse than what we just talked about? Number 10. This was the year of the Vine dance craze. The seeds were planted in 2014, but they really exploded this year. The point where I coined the term new crunk on Billboard Breakdown to explain them. And while there are a slew that I could choose from for this list, at the end of the day, they're fairly inoffensively vapid. It's not like we ever expected dance songs to actually have a brain. We do expect them to sound better than this.
Hit the quad, hit the quad, hit the quad, hit the quad. I said get down low and swing your arm. I said get down low and hit the quad. I'm finna show you how to hit the quad, hit the quad, hit the quad, hit the quad. I said get down low and swing your arm. I said get down low and hit the quad.
Okay, I could start by saying that ILoveMemphis doesn't belong anywhere near a microphone or talking to anybody with a voice that sounds perpetually constipated, but that's only the beginning of this song's issues. The majority of them focus on production that would be so creepy if it didn't sound so embarrassingly cheap. An oily, squealing synth against that bass head that sits there like a leaden block, plus hi-hats that you would never convince me didn't come from a cheap preset, it leads to a sound that perpetually keeps my stomach uneasy. It sounds like somebody tried to make a Mike Will made it beat and failed. And then we've got the lyrics, where honestly, this song is saved from being higher on this list by one decent Ninja Turtles reference and nothing else. ILoveMemphis then proceeds to ride crazy with itself 4 times as he tries to pick up a girl to hit the Quan with him. And really, if I was the boy from this case, I don't think I'd be panicking, because getting down low and swing your arms, Drake did that on Hotline Bling. And nobody takes him seriously anymore. But at the end of the day, this song shouldn't even made the charts. Cheap Vine trash like this, and Bet You Can't Do It Like Me, and nasty freestyle, they're so shoddily constructed that eventually quality will win out and push this crap off. Let's just hope that happens sooner rather than later. Number 9. But say what you will about how curdled and ugly Hit the Quan was, at least it was marginally original.
Now watch me whip, now watch me nay nay. Okay. Now watch me whip, whip, watch me nay nay. Why me do it? Now watch me whip. Watch me, nay, nay. Okay. Now watch me whip, whip. Watch me, nay, nay. Can you do it? Now watch me, watch me, watch me, ooh, watch me, watch me, ooh, watch me, watch me, ooh, okay, okay.
Look, I get that most of these Vine hits are designed to sound cheap and disposable, built off a keyboard line that you would have heard in 2008 and the thickest bass hits that you can afford. But Silento went the extra mile here by having painfully whiny vocals completely unable to back up his limp rip-off of a song, which didn't even bother to invent its own dance moves and instead stole from other bad dance songs wholesale. And of course, it's also got the Nickelback photograph problem. If we're listening to the song on the radio or become some sadistic DJ throws on at a wedding or a house party, we can't watch you. Granted, I can't imagine why anybody would want to watch this beyond the 6-second Vine, but the inclusion of these lyrics only highlights how this was never intended to become big beyond it. This isn't even like Soulja Boy, who at least had the personality to write the future hits that nobody remembers. Silento is trying right now with even worse songs somehow, like Dessert for a second hit. Let's do ourselves a favor and not let this happen for at least another 8 years, okay? Number 8. So, hypothetically, if you wanted to make one of these Vine dance songs work, logically the first thing you would do to give it a little bit of a budget, some production with some actual weight to it, give it to an established star that might be able to elevate the material. Oh wait. Beyonce. Why? I mean, I get it. You released a self-titled album full of heavy themes, so you want to do something a little bit more to unwind. Sure, you can still get down and party, but this isn't even the dance floor diva Beyonce that made clattering annoyances like Single Ladies. She's better than this. And when I say that, I mean Beyonce's never been good at playing up her gangster or ratchet side. Remember Diva? Oh, well, I won't say this song is worse than Diva. It certainly isn't anything I can respect from her. The production is overloaded with a rattling trap beat. When we do get a synth line, it's a lot more creepy than fun, and the bass seems to mutate and warp with every single verse. It's an ugly and misshapen track, not by Beyonce squawking out perhaps her worst ever vocal performance, and lyrics that remind me of an extremely drunk choreographer coked out of his brain. This is the sort of track that plays at the moment where the party's tilted to sloppy debauchery and not the fun kind, and the hazy outro where Beyonce slurs that she's so much fresher than me, that only seals the deal. Look, I get this song is not for me whatsoever, but whoever this is for, you can have it in all of its intoxicated and messy glory. I don't have to deal with a hangover. Number 7. And speaking of artists who are nowhere near convincing on their chosen tracks,
Bitch better have my money. Bitch better have my money. Pay me what you want.
the feeling that Rihanna and Beyonce just walked into each other's studios one day by mistake, because while I didn't buy Beyonce as a ratchet girl smacking her own ass, I buy Rihanna as a hard-edged gangster even less. Granted, if you go back through the decade of Rihanna hits, she's always been kind of all over the map as a performer, but her best material's always been sleek and sexy, dark but making it fun. Think Pond to Replay, or Please Don't Stop the Music, or something like Shut Up and Drive even, or even Disturbia. This song doesn't so much do that as it features Rihanna barking over another skin-crawlingly repulsive trap beat that takes some of Kanye West and Travis Scott's bass-heavy production and pairs it with some of the oily synths I've heard all year. That's before we get to the chopped and screwed outro that throws in pitch shifting into the mix, and oh god, she's trying so hard to sound intimidating, it's adorable. And I could go on about how the flow of the lyrics is terrible, and if Rihanna's gonna spend half the song bragging about her immense wealth, why she wouldn't even need to care about the titular bitch bringing her the money in question. But the biggest problem is Rihanna herself. Her verses are barely on key, her voice has nowhere near the presence to match that production, and then with every crack, the illusion breaks even further. Now, we didn't get a Rihanna record this year, even despite multiple singles doing quite well, which gives me the impression there's been a lot of retooling for that album ante behind the scenes for its release next year. Let's hope the rest of the album is not like this. Number 6. Now, if you look outside of the main charts, one of the main running themes of this year has been comebacks from long-established artists that have been on hiatus or haven't otherwise been recording or been all that popular. You didn't see a lot of that reflected in the Hot 100. It's not like Bitch I'm Madonna by Madonna and Nicki Minaj was a charting presence at all, but we did get one that broke through, courtesy of the last gasp of DJ Mustard's fading popularity, and it's arguably one of the worst and most disappointing examples.
If your chick come close to me, she ain't going home when she supposed to be. I'm getting money like I'm supposed to be. I'm getting money like I'm supposed to be. Oh, all my niggas close to me, and all the mother niggas where they supposed to be. Oh, the hoes go for me. How your chicks in the pit like post for me.
Now, I guarantee the majority of you don't remember who Omarion is. He was a member of B2K, went solo in the mid-2000s to very limited success when the R&B boom of that time sputtered out, and made a comeback with an album bankrolled by Rick Ross that pretty much nobody cared about. Seriously, I got no request to review it. And after you get through this train wreck of a song, you will continue to not care about Omarion because he's a non-entity on the song, somehow needing more auto-tune than Chris Brown needs on this particular song as he sing raps about stealing your girlfriend. But no, wait. He's not to blame for any of it because she plainly wanted to blow him anyway, because that's facts, no printer. And yes, that was one of the many awful lines in this song, but what really gets under my skin is how smug and self-satisfied the song is, not helped by Chris Brown all the more blatantly ripping off an old Jamaican pop song without giving any credit. And all this is supposed to be offset by Jhene Aiko playing Yo Chick, because that's how she's credited in the opening bar as a way to marginalize one of your best talents. And then you get the lines that she's saying the guy needs to eat her booty like groceries. You know, that lyric somehow got critical acclaim and apparently is the only thing that pop culture remembers from this song. But more to the point, why the hell is Jhene Aiko on this song? I know you were friends with Omarion a decade ago, but you dropped one of the best R&B albums of the past few years that's sold out. You don't have to do this. The sad fact is that outside of only decent production from DJ Mustard, she really is the best part of this song. But it doesn't make it any less of an incredible disappointment, which is why this song is on this list. And as of now, it's her biggest hit. In Just World, that would not be how it's supposed to be. Number 5. It may have started off in 2014, but 2015 was the year that bro country was officially done. At least to the point where the last dregs of the genre had their waning snippets in popularity and Nashville moved on to the metropolitan R&B tinged sounds. But that doesn't mean it wasn't gonna go out swinging, or shaking its ass, one way or the other.
Pedal to the floorboard, ain't a better photo, burning up a back row song. Pocket and we pile out, baby, watch your step now, better have your boots on. Keep the dust up. Back it on up, fill your cup up, let's tear it up.
Okay, seriously, did anybody like this song? I got family members who are Luke Bryan fans who have seen him live, and even they didn't like this, which probably contributes to the reason why Luke Bryan did not exactly have a good year in 2015. Sure, he still sold a metric ton of records, and this did go to number 1 on the country charts, but the fact that we didn't get anything beyond a lyric video seems to imply that there's even disinterest from the Luke Bryan camp, and it's kind of not hard to see why. It's a blatant retread of That's My Kind of Night, and while this is marginally less embarrassing without the hip-hop cliches, it's still god-awful. The song is choppy and has no coherent groove with some of the worst drum production I've heard all year. The synth tone is slathered all over the chorus like spoiled mayonnaise. The guitars are crushed into a slurry except for a pathetic 4-bar solo. And then there's Bryan himself looking to tear it up. And while I say the lyrics are otherwise asinine and forgettable, what really tips this song over into pure awful for me is the smug jerk-ass attitude. I'll admit, I'm a city guy. And as someone who lives in downtown Toronto, I can't stand overpriced nightlife here either. But what's telling is the sense of jealousy. Why else would you be bragging that you got beautiful people too? You're going out in cornfields and under bridges with bad moonshine and diesel engines. I'll stick to my downtown nightclubs, which will still play better country music than this. Number 4. This year, I gave out 2 of my lowest ever scores for albums. 2 out of 10. That would be a 1 out of 5 stars. Unquestionably a failing grade, but for very different reasons. The first case was where Thomas Rhett's Tangle Up being a smug, self-satisfied, badly produced, and plagiarizing atrocity that offends me to this day, but I can at least take some comfort that knowing outside of Die a Happy Man charting is the thinking out loud ripoff that it really is. Nobody cares about Thomas Rhett, not outside the country scene. But the other album is making year-end list, and it's arguably just as bad. And while most of its hits have avoided making serious chart impact, one made it just high enough.
I don't got no type. Nah. Bad bitches is the only thing that I like. You ain't got no life. Nah. Cups with the ice, and we do this every night. I ain't check the price. I got it.
You know, I've heard every defense for Shrimp Life and this song after I reviewed it. It's supposed to be mindless club garbage for people who get turned to. It's fun. To quote Pitchfork, its weightlessness is its purpose. And you know, that can be a valid defense of pop or even hip-hop music like Good Time by Owl City and Carly Rae Jepsen. Or hell, the entire last Carly Rae Jepsen album, which was actually pretty good. But maybe it's because I grew up in the era of crunk that was just as bass, but actually had a pulse and vocal personalities like Lil Jon, who could carry the music. This is not fun for me. A big chunk of this is Mike Will Made Its Fault, a limp, buzzy synth line against a bass that swamps out a leaden hook with sparse hi-hats, and then add in 2 of the worst vocalists and rappers to ever take the microphone in the past few years. Now, to their dubious credit, No Type is far from the worst song on Shrimp Life, especially in the lyrical content and flow, which is better than I otherwise expected, but the worst part has always been the hook. But they go from saying that they got no type from saying, bad bitches is the only thing that I like. So, avoiding the atrocious grammar and the fact that he's calling out women being things, is being a bad bitch not a type anymore? And I can't be the only one who sees Sway Lee trying to claim I don't have a life when his painfully thin and weak voice needs a pile of reverb to carry anything. It's a god-awful chorus and a forgettable, lifeless dreck. And the diminishing returns that Rae Sremmurd saw all year is hopefully proof the mainstream finally woke up to the fact and sent these assholes back to where they belong. Number 3. You know, I've made 3 of these year-end lists chronicling the worst hit songs of the past couple years, and you eventually start to notice some patterns. God-awful hip-hop, terrible bro country, abysmal lyrics, production that's way too dark and creepy to make their songs remotely fun. And on that note, Lil Wayne.
Oh, if you lame and you know it, be quiet. Nothing but real niggas only. Bad bitches only. Rich niggas only. Independent bitches only. Boss niggas only. Thick bitches only. I got my real niggas here by my side. Only.
Granted, Only is not Lil Wayne's song. It's his protege Nicki's, who along with Drake and Chris Brown have populated nearly a quarter of all of my list. But he's the one of the many reasons why Only is one of the most horrendous hip-hop songs I've heard this year. Technically a leftover from the Pink Print in 2014, and along with Anaconda is almost entirely responsible for making that record measurably worse. Only initially only got popular thanks to a music video that piled on the Nazi iconography, and then somehow stayed popular enough despite being a slice of atrocious rapping from everyone involved. It's a bad sign when the person who leads the track with the most dignity is Chris Brown handling the hook. But to her credit, Nicki's probably the next best. Yeah, explaining her own duct tape line is stilted as hell, and she seems way more defending with defending her ass and the fact that she never screwed Drake or Lil Wayne to get the top. You would have been in the game 6 years. Nobody would question you if you hadn't been wildly uneven in quality, but there are lines that kind of connect. I'll give her a pass here. But Drake? If he hadn't spent the entire year proving his career was unbreakable despite wild shifts in quality, I'd say this is one of his worst moments in 2015, where he sounds like a delirious 11-year-old gawking at tits for the first time. If we were looking for a reason why Meek Mill might have started his beef with Drake, this track might be a good indicator because Drake sets himself up as the next in line. Granted, Drake and Nicki have been doing this since Moment for Life, but here it's just pathetic. pathetic. Where he then brags about partying with crack-smoking former mayor of Toronto, Rob Ford, cause that's cool, and then being around girls when they put on their makeup. So okay, you're either the stereotypical gay best friend or you got friend-zoned hard. I'm thinking it's the latter. The miscalculation here is almost so stupid it becomes funny, and then Lil Wayne shows up. In his first 2 bars says he'd only screw Nicki if she was drunk as hell cause she needs dick in her life. Which of course then leads to him to saying that he pisses greatness like goldish yellow, then proceeds to ramble incoherently about shooting up people's houses, and wow, he sounds terrible. Half his bars are slurred, he has no real fire, he sounds like a total mess, and that's when he even bothers to rhyme. All this comes against a drippy 4-note synth line that leads to a whole new layer of ickiness onto the song. And yet, even with all that, it's still only at number 3. Wanna know what's worse? Number 2. Okay, to explain why this next song doesn't work and is an absolute catastrophe, let's go back to the 1950s and a mostly forgotten pop star named Pat Boone. Now, if you're a metal fan, you probably just involuntarily tensed up at that sound of that man's name, but he's more well known for being a major fixture in the growth of the Christian subculture and a contemporary of Elvis Presley himself, interpreting black music for white audiences. Now, unlike Elvis, Pat Boone was god-awful, epitomizing the stiff, try-too-hard, conservative, and painfully white stereotype that would come to characterize pretty much the rest of his career, and it's kind of offensive in its own right. And yet, in the year when you had Kendrick Lamar and Lupe Fiasco and a slew of other black rappers making some very powerful political and social statements, plus Black Lives Matter, and say you were a racist record executive who had just done a ton of horse tranquilizers, how could you possibly bring all that Pat Boone sparkle back and not be Post Malone? Well...
I love to be in trouble with you. Let's Marvin Gaye and get it on. You got the healing that I want, just like they say in the song. Until the dawn, let's Marvin Gaye and get it on.
You know, I think I was the first person to coin the joke on Twitter that this is the whitest song about sex since Afternoon Delight, but the real atrocity is how damn hard this song is trying to be sexy and failing spectacularly. Neither Charlie Puth or Meghan Trainor sound like they've ever even heard of sex. Instead, tried to borrow as much as they can from black culture in order to, set the mood. Putting aside how Charlie Puth tries to turn Marvin Gaye's name into a verb and desecrate one of the greatest legends of soul music, it also samples the bass line from Ben E. King's Stand By Me. And even with that, it fails spectacularly. Karma Sutra show and tell? The fact that he isn't even bragging about being subtle, it isn't remotely. The fact that Charlie Puth justifies the god-awful chorus in his annotations by saying, well, I want it that way, but the Backstreet Boys didn't make any sense, so I don't have to either. Way to be wrong and shit on my favorite boy band, you asshole. Then there's the production, which tries for a retro soul vibe with a fake record scratching, throws gang vocals in the mix, and on Meghan Trainor's verse, we get trap percussion, which doesn't fit with anything. Seriously, this song reminds me of the historically bad production that was on Glee, but at least most of the time that cast actually had pipes, because then we get to Meghan Trainor, who describes herself as a dog without a bone. And look, I don't want to call her a bitch, but what am I supposed to do with this? I'm getting set up here. And look, I get there is an audience for this dreck. People who are scared of their own genitals need music too, but this is gentrified cultural vandalism by two people who represent the very worst in modern pop music. And on that note, number 1. See, here's the thing about these lists. I don't really concern myself with cultural impact or popular consensus, mostly because it's pop music. And generally, most people forget the bad stuff and just move on. As much as I can't stand you and even know for implicitly endorsing date rape and Bottoms Up for being a horrendous example of the worst of bro country, looking back on them, they've mostly been forgotten as songs. Brantley Gilbert hasn't really been relevant in 2015 with singles not landing a lot of impact, and the damage to Rick Ross's and Rocco's career has been pretty undeniable since then. But when it comes to this song, it didn't kill her career. She's sticking around. It should have.
Dear future husband, here's a few things you need to know if you wanna be my one and only all my life.
Now, I'm not the only person who has thrashed this song or branded it as the worst hit of 2015, so finding new territory to rake this abomination over the coals is a little bit tricky. For starters, the cultural appropriation continues, as Meghan Trainor grabs up chunks of Dion's 1961 song Run Around Sue, or more recently of Ollie Murs' Dance With Me Tonight from 2011. And while I do like doo-wop, Meghan Trainor's sing-rapping feels stilted as hell, and her lower range is not flattering, even against this painfully plastic and white bread song. But then we got the lyrics. And here's the thing, if she was trying to play this comedically or for satire, like what you might see from country music like Shania Twain or Miranda Lambert, it might have worked, taking that vintage Stepford-esque Americana and showing how the toxic attitudes lurking beneath it. But that's not how this song is framed, because Meghan Trainor is playing it entirely straight, and she doesn't seem to be remotely aware how toxic her attitude is. And it starts small. I can rant about how the titular line isn't said by anybody with emotional maturity, but that's the entitlement that sneaks into the opening verse of how she deserves the date and the flowers, and then she will be the perfect wife. And the weird thing is that this perfection basically means her way or the highway. Not so much traditionally demure, but the sort of archetype that comes from toxic sitcoms as zero self-awareness. Because, of course, she's never wrong, and you should apologize regardless, even when she describes herself as crazy, which is a nightmarish can of worms for a very different day. And then maybe after you buy her a ring and operate as a premium doormat, she might give you some kisses. Yeah, a little hard for me to buy into any cuteness when this, but right before that, you said, we'll never see your family more than mine. That's insane. But the framing presents it, it's cute, it's innocent, it's a good message for young girls looking to stand up for themselves. And you know what, that scares me. And what scares me about this song is that there are people who are already saying, hey, this is feminism, right? Whereas in reality, any self-respecting feminist would be saying, this is nuts. In other words, on top of being an atrocious slice of self-obsessed retro pandering nightmare fuel with the weakest key change that I've heard all year, this is a song that can actually do cultural damage and take us backwards. In other words, I imagine this is what Donald Trump thinks feminism is, all dolled up to hide the latent insanity underneath it. Easily the worst hit song of 2015, and if we're lucky, time and progress will leave Meghan Trainor behind, just where she wants to be. So yeah, the rest of the list are coming. Got a little angry here, but in some cases, it deserves it. See you soon. My name's Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse. I'll see you next time.